Everybody, we're live from the mobile studios here in Miami, in the crypto capital, tech capital of the world, Miami, Florida. So, welcome everybody. We're here with Disrupt TV. We're in the what we call the green room, and we got some awesome guests. We're gonna do some quick intros. Everyone talk, share a little bit where you are today and what you're gonna talk about. So, Deb, what's going on?
Hey, I'm in gorgeous, gorgeous Maine on the water. So, nothing more needs to be said. Life is wonderful. And I have no clue what I'm going to talk about today. It's whatever you guys ask me, I'll come up with something.
You are a master. We love you for that. Sree, where are you calling in from? What are we talking about today?
Hi, I'm on the upper west side of Manhattan. You can see there's the Hudson River. And we learned in watching Hamilton that everything's legal in New Jersey. That's New Jersey across the Hudson River over there. And I want to talk about you and your Batmobile, Ray.
Excellent. Evan, where are we today? What are we talking about?
I am at an undisclosed location. No, I'm in the bunker in the Massachusetts area, and we're going to talk about my favorite subject, B2B, social media marketing and engagement, something folks on this meeting know a lot about.
We have no clue what you're talking about. We'll all learn. No, just kidding. Evan is one of the top influencers in the world. All right, we'll take it back to you, Elle.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Disrupt TV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on Disrupt TV show on Twitter and send Ray, myself, our distinguished guests, your questions live using hashtag DisruptTV. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the CEO and founder of Constellation Research. He loves cars. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Surviving and Thriving in a World of Digital Giants. He's a regular television, business, and technology contributor on Fox Business, Yahoo Finance, CNBC, and Wall Street Journal. In my opinion, he's one of the top futurists to follow on Twitter at RWANG0. From his car, welcome Ray Wang to Disrupt TV.
Somewhere live in Miami. Now, anyways, I'm here with the awesome co-host, Vala Afshar, the Chief Digital Evangelist of Salesforce. He's also the author of The Pursuit of Social Business Excellence, and executives around the world pay attention to every one of his inspirational and insightful tweets. But when he's not keynoting, when he's not speaking, he's also, you can find him on outlets like Bloomberg, outlets like Business TV, and of course, posting insightful analyses on ZDNet. So, hey, it's not about us. We say this all the time. It's about our amazing guests. Who do we have to kick it off today?
It's a privilege for us to have someone who influences influencers.
Oh, my goodness.
Evan Kirstel is business-to-business thought leader and a top technology influencer. For over a decade, Evan has been a noteworthy leader in the B2B tech space. He's been named as the top 20 most mentioned and retweeted by both CIOs and CMOs, and the number one influencer in the telecom, cloud, unified communications, and Internet of Things arena. Evan has listen to this, Ray, an aggregate social media audience of 500,000 people, 500,000 people, 30 years of enterprise sales, alliances, business development experience in telecom and IT is what's the foundation behind his consultative services. Evan has helped dozens of B2B tech clients, including 3M, AT&T Business, Intel, Qualcomm, and many, many others throughout the world. He's a Forbes Business Council member and a contributor, and an excellent follow on Twitter at Evan Kirstel, EvanKirstel. Welcome, Evan, to Disrupt TV.
Well, good to be here. I'll see you later. Thanks for the plug. No, but I'm here amongst digital giants. Speaking of your book, Ray, so I don't know what to say here. I'm feeling rather intimidated, but I'll do my best to share maybe a couple of insights. How's that?
That's why you're here. You're class act. Thank you so much.
Oh,
One of the
thank
things
you.
that we've been talking about is where the state of B2B social media is going, but more importantly, the whole notion of we're influence, we're media. I mean, we're seeing shifts. We're definitely seeing, and what's the current state of play? Where do you see things? What's important?
Well, it's been fascinating to watch. You and Vala have been on social, on these digital channels for, gosh, over a decade. And what we've seen, I think, I've seen through the pandemic, is really a 10x almost increase in real life engagement. It's no longer about a news feed. It's no longer about the latest sports scores. It is really about making meaningful connection and discovering and educating and learning and sharing and curating. And so the pandemic has, of course, shifted us to working from anywhere, working from home. And so the power of social and digital, the importance has really increased beyond, what I ever would even have imagined pre-pandemic. So as everything else has moved to digital, channels, so have we as human beings, the social part of social media.
Yeah, I mean, do you see this as an integral part of how brands are engaging in sales or showcasing what's happening or creating new types of communication mechanisms, or are they driving community? And what are the key mediums?
Yeah, I think brands are definitely waking up, B2B brands, tech brands, that is, to the power of social and digital. It's no longer about the face-to-face all the time. It's no longer about just the golf outings and the boondoggles, which we all love, but it's about that day-to-day engagement, that community building, as you mentioned, and and thought leadership. And increasingly, thought leadership is what happens on social. And brands are at a fundamental disadvantage against personalities. That's why you have Elon Musk with 50 times the reach of a Tesla. It's why you have Mark Benioff at Salesforce leading from the front with his views, his philosophy, and his leadership on display for not just the employees but the whole world. And that applies to us together on this call. It's about people connecting to people. As Brian said, human to human kind of communication. And brands, are struggling a bit to get that mind share of voice, which is why they have amazing advocates, evangelists, and influencers to help with their reach and engagement.
You mentioned two excellent business leaders who embraced social media well before the pandemic. Easily a decade presence on social media with Tesla and Salesforce, and more I see traditional company CEOs, not necessarily digital natives, like CEO of Ford as an example, or even CEO of Qualcomm, active on social, responding to customers, partners, sharing their vision and their roadmap, doing live events streamed on social. So do you have a sense that senior business leaders finally, and I say finally because, us three, you're right, we've been active for well over a decade, understand the power of humanizing their business, showing generosity, showing accessibility, showing empathy and humility by volunteering their time across these different channels and really, putting a face to the brand?
Yeah, I think there's been a big wake up call, and it's not just about PR and publicity and being the biggest voice out there. It's about sharing ideals and idealism and insights and political persuasion, beliefs, a belief system. And it's not, and you have many constituents out there on social. It's not just customers. We think of social media marketing and selling to customers, but you have investors, you have employees. Imagine that, communicating with your employees in a really meaningful, personal way. You have partners and partnerships, and you have the global nature of business, the ability to reach a global audience with one video or one tweet. So there's so many reasons why. The big question to me is why not? Why are still so many executives reluctant to kind of bypass their PR team and get themselves out there And it's the typical reasons. It can be a pretty challenging environment. You do have to take your slings and arrows as well. And we've all seen the negative side as well as the upside of social. So, but I think you're right. The velocity and the direction we're heading is to much more executive engagement.
And did the pandemic accelerate all of this, in your opinion, in terms of a
so.
sense of urgency to be on different channels?
I think so. We realized that, leaders need to engage and communicate with their staff, with their employees and their peers in the business. And that isn't just about private emails. It's about video. It's about audio. I mean, the tone of voice is a huge factor in connection. It's about podcasting. We've seen, amazing business leaders create and develop their own podcasts, their own point of view there. So all of these channels now are sort of coming together on social.
That's a great point, right? We've got that picking up new channels like the metaverse. We see that as a $20.7 trillion marketplace by the end of the decade. But what does that mean? Is in real life still important? Like, do you want to see people? Do we need to see people?
Absolutely.
When does that?
I think it's not an either or proposition. I just returned from 2 weeks in the road at HIMSS. It's a community of 40,000 healthcare professionals. I was at Enterprise Connect, and there is just nothing like meeting old friends, making new friends, and connecting, in a safe way. And so it's end to end. It's social and digital and in real life. It's not sort of we used to look at it as, okay, is it a virtual or in-person event? And I think every event now is a hybrid of sorts, as work is. It's no longer working from home or working at the office. We're in this new, strange sort of hybrid world.
Where do you spend your time? Are they certain social networks that you believe are important for business leaders to be a part of? And then are there others where they may be on a decline and you perhaps may be spending less time? How do you focus in on the different channels? And what advice do you have for a beginner executive? What's the 1, 2, 3 social networks that they should consider being a part of?
Yeah, I think exploration and trying and discovering is key. So, we've seen the Meta properties of Facebook and Instagram really hit sort of a peak engagement. We've seen the emergence of new networks like TikTok. Not that I'm suggesting you go on and create TikTok videos, and we've seen this just a plethora of emerging semi-public or semi-private kind of communities. And so I think go to where there's a community of interest, whether it's a LinkedIn or Twitter, where you can find the amazing sub communities, whether it's Reddit, where you can find subreddits of 10 million subscribers in amazing emerging tech and business communities, or whether it's, a private or semi, open Slack channels. Slack is becoming a kind of a social network, as is WhatsApp. So there are great ways to meet like-minded folks professionally and personally. And that might be Reddit, it might be Quora, it might be, yet platforms we yet to experience. There's always the next big thing.
Do you have a favorite?
I love Twitter. I'm a Twitter addict, and I've been addicted to the openness of Twitter and the public square aspects forever. So it's a total personal addiction, I think, for all three of us, frankly, if I were to be honest.
I need to turn it up. What's going on?
But in terms of content, TikTok and Reddit just have amazing creators, and there are things you can find there that you just don't find on a CNN or a LinkedIn. So go to where the creators are, and go to where the compelling content is, and whatever your discipline or interests are. And I'd say frankly, it's all the above. You really can't avoid. I
want to just a quick follow up, Ray, if you don't mind, because you've used the word creator a couple of times, and we're in the midst of a kind of the next generation of the web. Folks are referring to it as the third generation Web 3, where it's tokenized and it's incentivizing creators because you can monetize easily on a blockchain, and the content can actually create revenue streams for you. You can have your own coin, which I think you have. So what are your thoughts about, these social networks when eventually they may adopt more of a decentralized ledger and tokenized format where you actually can earn some income by producing content.
Yeah, and I think that's the next big thing with social media is enabling creators to get paid for their work. I mean, I used to think of creators as being, an artist or as a musician, and that's definitely the case. So there's a need to allow them to monetize their content in new and different ways and channels through crypto and coins on the Rally blockchain and what have you. But there's also an opportunity for creators who haven't thought of themselves as creators to reach new audiences, to gamify their content, to enable subscription style content. And the opportunities are there, whether it's DisrupTV or someone writing a blog or someone doing cooking videos. There's a channel and there's an opportunity to monetize and turn that into a business in ways that just haven't existed even 1 or 2 years ago.
I agree.
Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, we're seeing these shifts happen, and people are starting to understand that this transition from physical to digital is real, and you're going to be able to have immersive experiences between those two worlds, and at some point they will all come together. And that takes us to the interesting conversation about events, right? What happens in events? You kind of alluded, like, events are going to change. They're going to be hybrid. We'll start there. But what does that mean? Is that something that's permanent? Is that something we're going to keep? And what will events look like in the future?
I hope they're open, and I hope they're more inclusive than they have been. I mean, typically events have been something that maybe, cost you thousands, $5,000-$10,000 to attend, and very expensive to go to. We saw with the pandemic, the price of attending events go to virtually nothing or even free, which has opened it up to way more.
Well, they even pay you to come. So
yeah, and I think that's a good side. And so the more immersive and engaging and interactive these events can be on digital platforms, I'd love to see Dreamforce have 20 million people attend from all over the world, and not just fill up San Francisco, but really, enable people all over the world to learn, to educate, to connect. And I think that's what's really exciting. And whether that's through, augmented reality or virtual reality, who knows what the platforms will be. But I think it's coming, and very, if not this year, we're going to see some amazing digital experiences, whether you're there in person or attending from across the globe. Yeah,
there's an NFT event that's going to be held in a few weeks, and these are attendees have special access to backstage and some of the speakers because they have acquired NFTs, and they have digital wallets that give them premier level access at the event. And I thought that's a really interesting.
This is the one in the Bahamas? Is this the one in the Bahamas?
No, this is VCon, Gary Vaynerchuk's, which I wish it was in the Bahamas. Then maybe I would go. but I just think that it's a clever way of adding additional services or benefits to digital property beyond just the collectible. It almost creates an influence based on your wallet. What type of NFTs you hold gives you premier access. And I thought that's a clever way. So maybe someday Ray will have that at his event. But
sustainability badge.
Yeah, there we go. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on how hybrid events will eventually tap into this incredible, spending spree we've witnessed over the last year or so on NFTs?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I joined an event recently at Health, and your badge was an NFT. So that's more than just something you throw in the trash maybe when you get home, but you keep it in your wallet. Maybe you use it to connect to other attendees as almost like a digital passport. I saw NFTs where you can actually donate to a cause of your choice through buying the NFT. So that becomes a contribution, but something you can then highlight on your social profiles. So these NFTs have all kinds of use cases beyond pretty pictures of giraffes and monkeys.
Yeah. Really, at that concert in 1989? We have no proof on the chain. No, it's kidding.
So, that's right. You can no longer claim you were at Will Chamberlain's 100-point game when it was only about 2,000 people. but about 1 million people claim they were at that game. So yeah, I get that, right? That's a good
It's an amazing memory of these folks. I'm kidding. So yeah, no, but we're seeing that definitely. All right, real quick, I'm gonna ask you one last question. Think about what's happening in the influencer world. What does it mean? Like, we got terms like analyst, influencer, media, press. What's the role of the influencer today? Where's it headed?
I think it's headed towards niches, and I have a particular expertise in a few niche topics with 5G and IoT and some other related areas. So it's partnering with brands, with companies, organizations, in some cases, to really extend their voice, their reach, their share of voice on these social channels. And I act almost as an extension of their team. A lot of brands are lost on social media, so they need folks to really help amplify and extend their reach and engagement. And there are people like me doing this in all kinds of disciplines and verticals, and with different products. So it's nice to be out of the corporate world, as it were, as an independent. And this is a wonderful way to fund my lifestyle and what I do through helping clients.
Keep doing what you're doing. You do great work. You're a hard worker. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. No, appreciate it.
One of the top B2B thought leaders and top tech influencer, if not the top tech influencer in the UCAS and communication space, and even sometimes healthcare, we noticed. So you can follow him on Twitter at EvanKirstel. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Friday.
Thank you, Evan.
Happy Friday. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, sir. You too. Cheers. Yeah, he works hard. He's always sharing
all the time.
Yeah. Well, speaking of someone who's like legendary in this space, I mean, I learned a lot of my style and the way I produce content by following our next guest. Sree Sreenivasan is an inaugural Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Communication and Journalism. Sree is CEO and co-founder of Digimentors, a digital, social, and virtual and hybrid event consulting company working with corporations, nonprofits, and startups around the world. During the pandemic, Sree hosted, Ray, you know this, during the pandemic, Sree hosted hundreds of episodes of multiple shows. This was daily, to share accurate, useful information about various aspects of crisis. We've had 800 guests on our show over 6 years. He interviewed 600 guests across 25 countries in a 12-month span. It makes you and I look like slackers. Yeah. Sree has served as, and many of you know this, Sree served as Chief Digital Officer of New York City, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and Columbia University, where he was full-time professor of journalism for over 20 years. Fast Company named Sree one of the 100 most creative people in business. He was also named one of the 35 most influential people in social media by Poynter Institute, and most influential Chief Digital Officer by the Chief Digital Officer CDO Club. He's an excellent follower, and this, you can tell how early he was on Twitter at Sree, S-R-E-E. Welcome. Yeah, I couldn't get Vala. Welcome, Sree, to DisrupTV.
Thank you. You had your boss's book up there, Vala.
Yeah.
And so I'm showing it here. I have Ray's book only on Kindle, so I don't have it to show, but you do. And then, since we always must show the books of our bosses, I'm showing you my wife's book.
Oh, wow, Rupa, that's an extraordinary executive. Just 30 seconds. I collaborated with Rupa and her team to bring the first ever headless CRM in a smart cockpit of a car. First ever in the world. We've actually filed a dozen patents on this principle. And it was Rupa and her team bringing us together to really collaborate. And we launched this at Consumer Electronics Show 2020. And it was really talk of the show. So it was pretty awesome. She's awesome. She's awesome.
Thank you. She will appreciate that. She's at Rupa Online, Roopa Online. And she just started a new job, Vala, at IDEX Corp, which is a company in the industrial space that has dozens of companies that they work with, including one brand you will definitely know, the Jaws of Life.
Wow. Well, they're lucky to have her. They're lucky to have her. That's fantastic.
Pass on your regards.
For sure. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. That's amazing. And it's great to, see all that excitement here. And I want to share some news. I don't know if it's public. You probably tell us. You're taking on new responsibility in July 1st. This sounds very, very interesting. And, and it's with Cronkite Pro. So we're excited. This is what instruction, real world training, and of course, I mean, this is really about getting the next set of communicators out the door. And so, what does this mean? And how did you get into this? And I knew you were interested in media. I didn't know you were that deep, especially. So tell us about Concrete Pro. What is it about? How did it get started? And more importantly, what is this new passion or existing passion that's now being completely pushed out?
Sure. Well, thank you so much. And again, such a pleasure to be here with both of you, people I admire, people I follow, and not just you two. To have Evan and Deb on the same show is fantastic. Everyone, please follow these folks if you aren't already on all the socials. So I'm joining on July 1st the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, which is at Arizona State University. And what we're going to be doing is working on helping folks get better skilled at communications, no matter where they are in the world, no matter what company or what industry they're in. What I have learned is one of the reasons we are in the third year of a pandemic is because of bad communications. One of the reasons that we have a war in Ukraine is because a world leader has convinced some section of his military and his people that a democratically elected Jewish man whose father lost 3 brothers in World War II, 2 Nazis, is a Nazi himself. That tells you that communications is broken in so many ways, even as we celebrate how well all these social media tools and everything else are being used by everybody, including, of course, the president of Ukraine. So this is an important moment. And what Cronkite Pro will do is bring together all training that we offer in Phoenix, in LA, in DC, and online that is not for a degree program. So anything that's not a degree coming out of the Cronkite School, and just because it tells you how old I am, that now I know not everybody knows Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite was one of the most important journalists in American history. He was the anchor of the CBS Evening News at a time when millions of people would tune in every night to hear what was happening in the world, and they believed him. And there's a very famous moment where LBJ, President Johnson, said, when Cronkite goes out and discovers the truth about what's happening in Vietnam, that President Johnson says, if I've lost Walter, then if I've lost Walter Cronkite, I have lost America. So we could use, all of us could use a little more Walter Cronkite in our lives. And that's why I'm so honored to team up with Dean Batinto Batts, as well as President Michael Crow at ASU, to put together this program. And it starts in July, and I'll need help from everybody who's listening. We need partners, collaborators, trainers, folks who can help everyone in the world become better at communicating, and we'll be collaborating a lot. So looking forward to hearing from everybody. You have my email address right on your screen. Would love to talk to you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. One of the things that I appreciate about you, and I've been following you for a long time, is you do an excellent job of representing the organizations that you're a part of. There's obviously truth, there's authenticity, empathy, transparency, but again, you're masterful at the power of pull. You're not pushing stuff, trying and crossing your fingers, hoping to make a connection. The reason why Ray, myself, and others follow you is you have a unique way of pulling us into your sphere. And so we're talking for an hour about this topic, but how do you get someone who's not versed in storytelling and journalism, so people who don't appreciate being honest 100% of the time, as Professor Clay Christensen used to say, it's easier to follow your principles 100% of the time versus 98% of your time. How do you teach these core values that help you become such a great communicator that you are today? Oh,
thank you. I'll just start by just a shout out to the late great Professor Christensen, who has done so much to teach people about innovation, disruption, the things that this show is about, the things that both of you are so much about. So I'm glad we were able to name check him on this show. I would say that it does come down to storytelling, and we're seeing it in real time. We mentioned the president of Ukraine, but what about Arnold Schwarzenegger's video?
Wow.
That's going to be an artifact of this war. The way you remember that when Colin Powell using wrong information at the UN to send us into war in Iraq became an artifact of that war. This is going to be an artifact of this war. He looked directly into the camera and talked to Russian soldiers, and talked not first about all the things he believes. He talked about his connection to Russia and how much they love him there, and showed why they are being, lied to in a way that I couldn't think of anyone else who could have done it at that moment. Whether the message will get through and all of that is
Sure.
not clear. The other thing I will say is I recently wrote about that piece, about that video, in my newsletter, which you can find on Substack, sreenet.substack.com. And in it, I talk not only about Arnold Schwarzenegger, but about, here's another name you haven't thought of in a while, Sting. You might remember in 1985, you guys were very young, maybe not born yet, but he made a song called Russians. And it's about whether we could survive the Cold War because Russians love their children too. And we knew that in the old Politburo, in the worst Soviet empire, the main leader had people around him who he trusted and who had some check and balance kind of effect on him. Today with Putin, we're all counting on him loving his two daughters, and we don't know if there's anybody around him. So the fact that Sting went on Instagram and replayed that song for the first time in years, he said that song was irrelevant. What might save us, me and you, is if the Russians love their children too.
Amazing. Yeah, that 9-minute video with Arnold Schwarzenegger was just stunning. Just compact with passion and wisdom and clarity. Amazing. Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, no, one of the things that we keep seeing is really, you're right about communications. I mean, the lack of communications or the misinformation, all these are playing in a role in terms of shaping public opinion, right or wrong. It's changing the way we look at proportional response. It's changing the way we kind of connect, given all we've seen in the past few weeks. I mean, so what do we do? What can journalists do to use social media, more wisely? Right, more ethically, especially holding restraint. Right, we've seen emotion trump logic. We've seen people take things that were probably not political, make them more political. We've seen snippets of information turn into explosive content that probably might not should have been, and it's happening everywhere. And the proliferation is happening even more. And by the time we get to the metaverse, right, we'll be wondering what's a deep fake and not. Or wait, maybe my reality is completely messed up my medication, but I don't know, we're seeing all this.
Yeah, we don't know the answer to where this could go, but I will just say, the way people are responding on social media to the enormous power of visuals is part of the problem. And I can tell you that I was fooled, as were millions of people. Do you remember the island that was being defended by Ukrainian soldiers, and the Russians said, we will, disarm, and they said, F you, and that became a huge thing, and the next thing was supposed to, the island was blown up, they all died. Well, we can report, as we've confirmed this week, that those sailors did say all of that, but they were not bombed, they weren't killed, and in fact, they were exchanged in a prisoner swap just in the last couple of days. So imagine all of us who got sucked into that, probably pro-Ukraine kind of propaganda to show the power of these incredibly strong and courageous people, but not the truth, not the full truth, is an example of how journalists should be very careful about verifying, double checking, triple checking before they publish anything, because they can be wrong so easily.
But how do you do this? It's metaverse speed, right? I mean, these things happen and you don't want to be last, right? Yeah. Like how do people do that? How do you teach that?
I would say that let's not be first. Do you remember in the old days of disinformation, which was email would come to you and someone would say, do you remember the famous, my friend woke up, it's always my friend, he woke up in New York City in a tub of ice. Do you remember this? And why? Because
Mike McKinney.
Yeah. Or from the top of the World Trade Center during the attack, there was somebody who was about to take a photo, and he took a kind of a selfie of himself back in the day in 2001. The building collapsed, and they found the photo of him just before the plane hit the tower. And that's now coming an email to you. So the fact that I am, I believe I'm so important that photo would be found and it would be sent to me first before everybody in the world, before CNN.
It was amazing, actually.
First was the way we got fooled in those days. Today, it's much more dangerous, much faster. And also, by the way, if I got a rumor before the internet, I could only tell 5 people at the water cooler. With email, I could tell dozens of people. Now I can tell millions of people, and still it's the same error, the same wrong information, but weaponized at scale.
Well, Sree, you remember when we both attended the third Nigerian email conference, right? The keynote address from postal scams to email scams. We have come a long way, infant child. Remember that? So.
I have young children in middle school, in high school, and a freshman in college. And I try to often remind them that your personal brand today, and definitely more and more in the future, is your digital footprint plus your digital exhaust. Those unintended consequences of breadcrumbs of the video, the photo, even hashtag fail, or, the tone and sentiment is so easily extracted in your social footprint, especially with power users like us three. When I decide to follow someone on Twitter, honestly, two thumb scrolls, and I can make a decision like, I'm just not aligned to this person's mindset. And I suspect for most power users, it's literally seconds before you decide to make a connection or not. How do you teach your students? How do you convey the importance of your digital exhaust and digital footprint? And are students getting it? Are they smarter today compared to when you were teaching 5-10 years ago? Or is this something you need to constantly reinforce in your class?
Well, this is a great question, because I learned so much from my students today. I'm teaching at Stony Brook School of Communication and Journalism out on Long Island. And these students are working so hard and working, a job and going to school full time and dealing with all this pressure from the outside world in a way we didn't have to before. And what we talk about in terms of what they are revealing to the world in their digital footprint, I'm going to steal digital exhaust because it's brilliant and another great concept from Vala that I will credit you for. But that idea that everything you do can and will be held against you, not in a court of law, but in a court of public opinion by people who are looking for things to get you in trouble for. So I tell people, be really careful. And I try to model my own behavior. Yeah. I make them watch me tweet. It's like watching paint dry, because I spend 3 to 6 to 10 minutes on a single tweet, because I know it's the one thing that can get me fired today, can get me divorced today, can get, and it's going to be stored in the Library of Congress or whatever. So are
they still doing that?
For a decade.
But
I got to wait a decade before I run for office.
If you think about, the other way I tell people, like, look at whatever you send right now. If you were hit by a bus, that would be your final tweet. And there are people who collect final tweets. Yeah. And if you're Leonard Nimoy, you'd have a beautiful final tweet, as he did. It was gorgeous and meaningful and the power of the universe. Yeah. But the rest of us are not going to be able to do that. So think about every
schedule. Come on.
If it's your last tweet, I don't want to get all morbid, but if it's your last tweet, what will you be known for? Complaining about your sandwich order? Or will you be sharing something, elevating somebody else, making someone feel good, being generous, being useful in the world, being helpful in the world? That's what I tell people.
Great advice.
I literally, delete 9 tweets before I tweet one out there. Now I'm going to have to delete like 19 before I put one out there.
You need to hire someone to delete your tweets, Ray.
I need delete all forever. I mean,
can I just say, all joking aside, Ray, we want that record of the things you've said. That's your legacy. And so I'm on a little campaign to tell people not to auto delete. There are people, there are these tools that auto delete your tweets. You didn't believe in them that they were important enough. You're scared of trolls. Why let the trolls win? And then what I tell people is use the hashtag life highlight just for yourself. It's not for the planet necessarily, but if someone sat down and said, let me find out what were the things that were important to Ray 40 years ago when he was doing this show, how would they know? Because you have hundreds or thousands of tweets a month. Why not put hashtag life highlight next to the ones that you care about? And then they can just do, at Vala Afshar and have life highlight. And there's a beautiful memory bank of the things that Vala cared about, so that we're not guessing what did Vala care about? He cares
That's
about
smart.
a lot of things we know.
That's smart. That's really smart. I could never. I tweet too much to be able to search for any wisdom or
Start
highlights.
now, Vala. Start now. Every time you do something, because what you do, I mean, both of you, but Vala, when he tweets something, people listen, people retweet, people learn. And that's how you want to use Twitter. And Vala, I think most people know this, that he joined Twitter very late in life. He's a young man, but late in life. He didn't start when he could have. Vala, tell them about your backstory on this.
Yeah, I'm usually late to many things, so they assume because I work for a super innovative company and I'm active on social that I'm a leading user of stuff, and I'm not. It took me a decade to get into crypto, a decade to get into social, and probably a decade before I'm in the metaverse, unless Ray replaces me with an avatar on this show. And at that point, I'm out. So
oh, you're building your own avatar. We're gonna have one for you.
But definitely this is it's this hashtag life highlight, just learning from you two. It's I think we're all active on these digital platforms because it's the best way for us to stay teachable, and it's really hard to stay teachable. There's just so much happening, and I worry about friends and colleagues and family members who are not actively learning continuously, because I just hope that they can find a way to stay relevant.
Can I just say that one of the problems is that they are learning. They're learning from WhatsApp. And especially if you're immigrant families, you know this. If you have international families, they're being poisoned every day by WhatsApp. I use WhatsApp for my business. Instead of Slack, we use WhatsApp. I trust it. I use it. But I've seen the poisoning of my relatives' minds and my friends' minds in India and elsewhere from WhatsApp. So people are learning. In fact, we joke about it, call it WhatsApp University, because people think they're learning knowledge and wisdom on WhatsApp when there's a lot of poison in there.
You know what's the worst thing is, like, when you get from older individuals that you love, like those real hoaxes you got in the 90s, back again. They come back with a vengeance. I mean, that's where it comes back, and it's horrible. But hey, this has been very insightful. Thank you again for sharing. Looking forward to breaking bread with you in New York. Sree Sreenivasan, CEO of Digimentors and inaugural Marshall Loeb, visiting professor at Stony Brook University School of Journalism, and soon to be at ASU. So hey, congratulations. Follow him at SREE. So we'll see you around. Happy Friday.
Thank you, Sree. Tremendous mind, and someone I highly recommend people follow, because he's smart and he's generous. Speaking of smart and generous, our next guest was on episode 16. We're on episode 272. So I just want to let you know, when Ray and I were thinking about launching this podcast, we literally sat down and said, who are the most important, smartest, influential people in our lives? And they made up the first 20 episodes. They did, because selfishly, we wanted to launch a good show. So that just tells you where Deb Schofield sits on our reverence ladder. I just made up that reverence ladder. All right.
Reverence ladder.
I gotta go. I want to go quickly too. By the way, I cut your bio in like a fifth. Deb Mills-Scofield, strategic and innovation consultant, venture capitalist, mentor, advisor. Deb is passionate about helping companies and individuals see what's possible, implement plans to achieve it. I've got career advice. I've got life advice from Deb. Her vision on how things could be running at the world of the possible manifested in full force, starting in college when she co-created Brown University's cognitive science concentration and graduated, Ray, listen to this, in 3 years. It took me 5.
What?
And
You get your money's worth.
Having just co-created recently the new design engineering concentration in Brown School of Engineering. At Bell Labs, she created one of AT&T's highest revenue-generating patents that we all take for granted today. Maybe we can talk about that as well. Deb's articles in Harvard Business Review, her blog, and contribution to various business books aim to inspire people. I met Deb after reading her HBR article about being an immigrant. And I just on Twitter said, I read this article resonates with me. And then she connected with me, and that's just incredible generosity, because she didn't know me from a hole in the wall, just someone who admired her article. Deb is a partner at an early stage VC firm. Deb's official positions at Brown University include University's mentoring maven, adjunct lecturer, member of the School of Engineering Advisory Council, mentor for the Joint Brown University Rhode Island School of Design's Masters in Design Engineering, and much more. I had to cut that off, Deb. You do too much at Brown. She's a member of the Maine Center for Entrepreneurship and in Northeastern University's Rowe Institute founder in resident program. You can follow Deb on Twitter at dscofield, Scofield. Welcome back, Deb. This is your 4th appearance, and we're so grateful. 4th, yes. Thank you so much. 2016, 2018, 2021, 2022, and it's going to be an annual event. So just kind of get your popcorn, buckle up the seatbelt, because we're going to have you here for the 5th and 6th before you know it.
Right. We have the great Twitter. I was thinking of this when Sree was talking too. The whole great Twitter story of our network and Sydney and CC Champions and the Celtics.
The greatest thing to happen to me on Twitter in the 10 years I've been on Twitter is what you just mentioned. And I don't want to take time from us learning from you, but Deb wrote an article about it in HBR, and it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me on the platform. Okay, Ray, go ahead. The floor is yours.
No, that was always impressive.
Oh, here's my book.
Oh! What are we looking at?
Not by me.
Oh, I was going to say, is this breaking news? Because I thought it was yours. Okay.
No, it's my favorite book, but no.
Oh.
And it's your favorite book. Amazing. Well, hey, one of the things that you've been. Oh, go ahead, Vala.
No. I just want to see the title and why is it your favorite book?
Because
bring it up closer, and we'll spot in Martin Buber.
The philosopher died in the 20th century, but it is basically at its succinct level. Is it about me, or is it about thou as a human in a relationship, not a transaction, which gets to value proposition, how you treat people, how you treat your network. It's like just life basics.
Wow.
The old do. So anyways, yes.
Wow.
I think
I was asked yesterday a book that resonated with me a long time, and it was How Do You Measure Your Life by Clay Christensen.
Yep.
That's a book that I remember the lessons in the book, and I can't say that about all the books that I read, but certainly his. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
No, it's all coming back to me, subject to subject. It's a very fun book. It's a really good book. It's
oh yeah,
I'm coming to me. I think so. I think it's required reading in Catholic school. I don't remember.
By a nice Jewish man.
But one of the things you've been talking about is really the state of HR, and this was kind of concerning. You're saying HR is really out of touch with the rest of the business, right? They don't understand what's happening in the business, or they don't understand what's strategic to the business. So many folks you've bumped into don't even know what they sell, products, services, offerings, what are the trends and what's going on. So why is that? Like that, even just the basics are now lost in an area like HR.
I don't know. And it's just really hit me, because if I'm dealing with little companies, then it's really HR. Well, it's a shared, someone is doing it as part of their job.
You're talking like the largest companies here, right? So.
Yeah, but in these large companies, so I've got 3 clients I'm working with right now. We're prepping and getting ready for their strategic planning. And so when I send out the homework, it goes to the whole C-suite. And it's all about them, their business, their markets, everything, right? And 2 out of the 3, the heads of HR came back to me with, well, I don't really know that much about our markets and our products and our services, so I'm leaving those parts blank.
Wow.
Oh, and not about manufacturing and operations. And I'm just thinking, like, how what are you, like, strategically
We're on a family show, but keep going.
Like, how do you, at a strategic level, you're not doing compliance, you're not doing benefits. How do you serve the company if you don't? You should be able to rattle off to me, I think, the product services, at least the major ones, the highest revenue generating and highest profitability, the markets you're in, why you're in them, why you're not in other markets. What are the issues with production or manufacturing or engineering? And it's just, I've never seen this before at this level. And I don't, It's only 2 so far, but it's got me so ticked. I'm having private conversations with the CEOs because it's like, number one,
What does
don't
your team?
invite them to the strategic planning retreat because they ain't adding anything. But like, did you know that they don't even know what you guys really do and what your pressing problems are? I mean, it's bizarre, and I think
Oh
it's
no, this is happening in marketing too.
malpractice. What do
No,
you
this
mean
is happening in marketing. Oh my God, we're encountering these large global big companies. They have these big marketing teams. Nobody knows anything about marketing. They don't know what their product does. They're just glorified program managers. They're just doing vendor management with agencies. It's brutal. So you might be on the bigger trend here in a future book. So
I gotta write one in to start with. What? Yeah.
As you reveal these findings with the CEOs, do you sense that part of the responsibility is theirs, meaning that they don't view the function as a true partnership, where maybe they don't invite them to the direct report to the CEO? I'm assuming CHROs report directly to CEO, but maybe not.
No, they are.
They are. So how do you attend these meetings and not know your products and your go-to-market and your services? Do they just not pay attention in the meetings, or is it? And I don't want to bring up, I don't want to make excuses, but certainly the last 2 years has been pretty hard on the HR function. Like, the mask policy, remote, hybrid, who comes, who doesn't, vaccinations. Like, their work, I'm guessing, is double, triple just with trying to keep continuity of business given what we've experienced in the last 2 years. Is that an excuse or
no?
No. Okay.
Nice try.
I tried.
no cigar.
The reason I say no is because at this level, there are people that work for them that are dealing with that. Not that they aren't setting policy and all that, but I think it happens for 2 reasons. The HR people are they're not sitting at the table. I mean, they may physically be sitting at the table, but they're not there in their, and the rest of the C-suite, maybe because traditionally it hasn't been viewed that way, isn't pushing them either. Now, to me, I don't care whether you're being pushed or not. If that's your role, you take it on and you do it. And especially, let's go pre-COVID. Especially in this world where even pre-COVID, talent wins. I mean, you've got to understand the markets and where your people are playing and what's going on. If you're going to help, you could go to operations and say, I know you're looking for this type of job, but if this is really an issue, I think we need to look for someone that's got these capabilities. So I don't think COVID is an excuse. I think this started earlier. I think COVID has been a way to rationalize maybe why not. But for the clients that I'm dealing with, they're selling today the same stuff they were selling pre-COVID.
Yeah.
It's not changing.
Okay.
It's not. Okay. I mean, there might be changes, but overall, it's not like, we pivot.
Dramatic
$1 billion company just pivoted away from their core.
Right.
I don't. To me, it's fundamentally a lack of curiosity.
Okay, so this is an HR issue, not a company culture or a management philosophy. It's just the ownership sits with the person leading the function.
I see it, for the most case, and again, I've got a small sample size, but it's like, red flags going off.
Sure.
I see the other parts of the company very integrated and looking at what's going on. And I think HR has taken themselves to the side and then also not encouraged being a part of it. So you kind of forget they're there.
Yeah.
And I just think it is a lack of curiosity and a lack of a sense of urgency to help the company grow, especially now since COVID. And there's such an issue for being able to attract and retain talent. It is incumbent upon them. I feel like,
this is related. This is related to your other question and other topic that I know you've been hot on, which is really about product market fit, right? Where people are excited about the problem, they get fixated about the problem, and then they don't grow from it, right? And maybe this is a general thing where people are no longer courageous enough or curious enough to ask those right questions. Maybe something's holding them back, because I wanted to say something about the social media stuff when we're talking to Sree. It's like there's no courageousness of people to share their views because they're afraid to be, like they might not be the right views. They, might offend someone. Maybe we're in that stage where people are afraid. Right, they're just afraid of the consequences of sticking their heads out or trying to lead, and now everyone's following. Like I don't know, does that resonate with you?
Well, it does, but I think I'm not a good one to speak to that, because my whole career and the way I'm wired is what's the, and to what Sree was saying with Zelensky and being a child of Holocaust, what's the worst thing you can do to me? You can't put me in Auschwitz anymore, so you can't do anything to me. So in a way, it's a caveated way of saying I'm just going to do what I think's right, because the price of not upholding my integrity is worse than getting fired.
Sure.
Oh,
I don't think that's
a lot of people have that anymore.
No, I also just think there's these are more traditional HR roles that have come up, and I think they're just not being pushed and questioned by the C-suite to come up with some of this stuff too.
What are the right questions to ask as you're trying to figure out product market fit?
I think the most important thing is to ask the end user, the person that's going to use your stuff.
Okay, customer.
I think the most important thing is to ask a lot of open-ended questions about their life, their situation, why they do some things, why they don't do other things. Do not ask how. You ask why, you ask what, and you get off your, like Goya, you get off your tush. Get out there, shut up, and watch them. Back to I, thou. Whoops. It's about thou. It's about them in their world, in their context, and having them help you understand so you can work with them to design a solution for their world, their constraints, their context. Not, I'll pull another philosopher, Kant's divine ought. Not what you think it ought to be or should be. And
so is this the jobs to be done milkshakes story from again? Yeah.
It totally is. But even more important with our broken healthcare, I have a food bank as a client. It's one of my smaller ones who I just love, absolutely love. They have gone out to where the people are. A single mom working 2 jobs with 3 kids. Where is she during the day? So then where do we need to be for her to just pick up food? And I was working with a bunch of grad students who thought it would be great to put refrigerators in parks in the Northeast. And that way I'm thinking, like, hello, the fridges aren't going to stay there. What do you plug in a fridge into in a park?
Electric trees.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm a single mom, 2 jobs, 3 kids. If my kid's in the park without me, I'm scared. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
So it's building your anticipatory muscle, being able to anticipate what your customers need and understand the why behind the reasoning, and then develop products and services to meet those needs.
It could be. I think it's anticipatory if you're doing something more leading edge.
Okay.
I think otherwise it's just plain listening.
Yeah.
Taking your preconceived notions out. It is not about you. It is about them. Do not judge. Oh, well, I don't think they should be doing it that way. Well, tough toodles, they are. It is just getting out of your own way and your mindset and treating them and listening to them for their world.
When you're looking to invest early stage startups, what's the aha moment for you when you say, yeah, I'm going to invest in this person? Is it the idea? Is it the person? Is it the product? What is it? What is it that you gravitate to most?
First, it's the people. It's the team. So I prefer an A team with a B idea over a B team with an A idea.
Wow. That's
now,
tweetable.
that doesn't mean.
Please tweet that. That's great.
Will wisdom. You tweet it for me?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you. I got deadlines today, guys.
Yeah.
But no, awesome. Now, I'm not going to invest in something that's not maybe in my sweet spot. I might have certain market sectors and
Sure.
industries I'm looking at.
Sure.
But within that, it's all the character and integrity. Are these good people? No schmucks allowed. And to your point, you were talking about before with Sree, is are they teachable?
Okay.
Are they
Rate of
curious?
learning.
Do they want to learn?
High rate of learning and good judgment. High rate of learning and good
Right.
judgment. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Now,
humble.
now you know why you are on episode 16. Our audience knows because you drop nuggets of wisdom like it's pouring rain. This is.
And Vala tweets it out for me.
Yes.
There you go. What a partnership. Hey, real quick before you go, always wanted to ask you, who are your mentors? Right? Who's driving you? What are your mentors? What gets you excited? Who do you learn
Who could possibly be your mentor? Come on.
Exactly.
Like do you hang out with the Dalai Lama and the Pope? Like who are your mentors?
No, not them. Not them. My mentors are my mentees.
There you go.
Wow.
I mean, that's the whole reason I do it. Is I learn from them. I grow. I stay relevant.
Wow.
It's grad school for free. Oh my gosh, I learned so much
You're
from these
paying her to learn. It's amazing.
So how many of your client executives embrace reverse mentoring? And if they don't, do you encourage them to do so?
Maybe 2.
Oh, wow.
Do I encourage them? Like all the time.
Okay.
You know, and I'll introduce them to my students and then they're blown away. But
it's hard.
Not a lot buy into that yet. And there's some where I know that I can get them to, and there are others it's like, oh, you know,
no, there's so much to learn.
It's not worth the trouble at this point.
No, there's so much to learn. I have about 6 or 7 people I'm mentoring, and I learn something new all the time. It's an amazing exchange. But we believe the best way to do it is if you have like a 15 to 20-year age gap, so they don't feel like there's any kind of competition, and it's just enough so that you can be relatable. So, but hey, we're here with Deb Mills-Scofield, strategic and innovation consulting, venture capitalist, mentor, advisor, and of course, smart nuggets. So you can follow her on Twitter at DB Scofield. More importantly, catch her, of course, in class if you decide to take a class with her. So thank you so much.
Take a class with her. Thank you so much, Deb.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Cheers. One of the most accomplished, kindest, most reachable, generous person I know. Just remarkable, and an engineer and an architect. I mean, she's a techie. She's just incredible. Anyway, Ray, time for you to do a recap of B2B influencing and how to embrace ethical journalism and be a great storyteller and appreciating different lines of business and making sure that you understand what your company does and why you do it and how you do it so you can be a more valuable executive in your business. Your thoughts?
You know, I wasn't going to go here, but I'm going to. It all begins with your ability to have a sense of empathy, right? And when we think about B2B social media today and just connecting with folks, right, broadcast doesn't work. We've got to ability to connect back with individuals, tie relationships to ideas, activate movements through moments that matter. And I think the best folks are doing that. And that's what Evan is talking about. But that ties back to where journalism is going, right? And what's happening in the future of journalism is we want to be part of something and we crave that attention. And that's why the community aspects are so important. Everyone wants to be part of something bigger. Everybody wants to be helpful. People want to contribute and give. The problem is, how do we identify what's truthful, what's real? You know, and it's getting harder, right? And this is changing because media's role and the platform's role, the reach, the virality means that we've got to do something a little bit different, or we might get into more wars or more misunderstandings or more bad communication failures that are out there. And what Deb was talking about is also a big piece of this. I mean, this is thinking about, right, organizations not understanding the core of who they are. How can they build from something like that? Or not understanding that, you know, products have changed. And so it's really this understanding of empathy for customers and stakeholders like suppliers and partners and employees, but just an empathy for the fellow mankind, person kind, womankind, human, so that we get to that point so that we don't mistrust people. We don't misjudge something and we can actually, you know, go back to what we want to do, which is the pursuit of happiness. But anyways, you do this to me every week. I got to think why.
How can you be so articulate in a car? Like, this is, Ray, that was awesome recap. And I'm going to continue to have you recap because pearls of wisdom just come out of your come out. All right. Episode 273 next week. Ray, we're getting close to 850 guest interviews. Heather Dahl, CEO of Indicio, and Ken Ebert, Chief Technology Officer at Indicio. We have Steve Wilson, one of the world-renowned security expert, Vice President, Principal Analyst at Constellation Research. He's a blockchain, crypto, security, incredible wealth of knowledge. And one of our favorite guests, Larry Dignan, who's Editor-in-Chief at Celonis, will be joining us. Wow. I think it'll probably be his 14th, 15th appearance on our show.
We get to see his new role.
We do get to learn about his new job. He was a former Chief Editor-in-Chief of ZDNet and now at Celonis. So, Ray, if it's Friday, it's Disrupt TV. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next Friday. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.